Hello, students. Good evening. Welcome to the live session today. Today's session, we are basically going to discuss about poverty and inequality. Poverty and income inequality in India, a very important topic beyond doubt. Something that has been asked, very debatable also. It comes under Indian society and social justice. I'm trying to get you some basic topics which are very, very important, which will help you to understand core concepts and all. So today's session, I'm going to basically talk about poverty and income inequality. Now let's begin understanding what is poverty, what is income inequality, how do we go about with this topic. See, I'm going to tell you the definitions of some basic terms here, and then we are going to talk about the causes and impact. Also, discuss the challenges. In fact, when we discuss the causes, I'm also going to discuss a few points that are related to the challenges. Now, let's begin with understanding how do you define the term poverty. Merely understanding poverty will not help in understanding income inequality. See, poverty basically, World Bank defines it as the inability to attain minimum standard of living. It could be in terms of roti kapda makan, when you're not able to attain, fulfill basic needs. And what are the basic needs? Food, water, shelter. But today's society, I'm sure majority of them are able to fulfill these basic needs. So can poverty be only restricted to this definition, or should we go forward into understanding poverty further? The answer is you have to go forward. Over a period of time, as time has changed, as economy developed, as we entered developmental economics, as we talked about human development and all that, we started talking about different types of poverties. In this context, we talk about two important concepts. One is absolute poverty. Why they are important, how they are related, you'll understand once I talk about it. The other is called as relative poverty. Now, why should we talk about these two concepts? I'll tell that, but before that, please understand absolute poverty is where you are totally incapable or inability to attain basic needs. What I have told you as the definition of poverty. Now, to be more specific, if we narrow down, we call it as absolute poverty. Then, what is relative poverty? Absolute poverty is where you look at an individual and talk about only his economic status. We are not comparing him with anybody. We are not drawing comparisons. We just look at an individual, see whether he's earning enough to fulfill his basic needs. But here, basic needs will go beyond food, water, shelter. It will be food, water, shelter coupled with education, health care, information, and so on. So we expand the points that come under basic needs or the necessities that come under basic needs. Now, relative poverty is where you compare individuals, you compare one person's status to another person's status. So, relative poverty is where we talk about the ability to spend or purchase. Okay, you are able, everybody is able to fulfill their basic needs, or majority population is able to fulfill their basic needs. But what about the rest? How much of difference is there in their access to resources, in their access to other needs, in their access to leisure activities? It could be anything. So, relative poverty is where you compare. For example, what can I purchase and what can the richest man in India purchase? What he can purchase, any car you talk about, but I cannot do it. So there's a lot of gap between what I can do in terms of purchasing, in terms of spending, in terms of my income, and what he gets in terms of his income, spending, and purchase. So relative poverty is always comparative, and our income inequality is directly related to it. Why is income inequality directly related to it? Because income inequality is basically about, this is about the disparities in income levels, in income levels in a country. Now, to better understand this, according to Oxfam report, 1% of India's population, the super rich of India, control nearly 50 plus percentage of the wealth in India, the income in India. So this is income inequality. 1% is getting 50% of the wealth. The remaining 99% is sharing the remaining 50% of the wealth. So this is called as income inequality. And income inequality is closely related to relative poverty, because in relative poverty we compare. Income inequality is where we say, look, there is so much of disparity in people's income. If Ambani is earning, 1,000 crores a day, there are people in India who not even earn 1,000 rupees a day. There are many people in India who do not earn 1,000 rupees a day. So that is income inequality. And relative poverty is comparison. We compare Ambani with this one person who is able to earn only 1,000 rupees. What is his income? What is he able to afford? What can he spend on? And what can he access with money? And what is Ambani's income? What is he able to afford? What is he able to spend on? So relative poverty is more of a comparison, not just in terms of income levels, but also in terms of accessibility to a lot of necessities. But income inequality is basically about the distribution of income. Is it equal? Is it unequal? Income inequality is usually measured by Gini coefficient. According to World Bank, in India, it is reducing. But is it really reducing? Where does India stand with regard to income inequality? Today in India, the focus is more on relative poverty rather than absolute poverty, because despite the limited success of government schemes, absolute poverty to a large extent has reduced in India. It could be because of Manrega, it could be because of midday meal scheme, healthcare facility, schemes like Ayushman Bharat, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, and all that. To a large extent, the basic necessities of people are being fulfilled in India. Now, the focus is more on relative poverty and reducing these income inequalities. But what are the causes of this? Let's look at the causes of this. What causes poverty and income inequality? Let's see, always remember, whenever you write about causes, you should always write from the most historic or to the latest, or you have to write it from the perspective of the most important to the least important. Undoubtedly, the most important reason is historic inequalities, and this perpetuated through generations. What is historic inequalities? See, even today in India, the access today to a large extent it is controlled, but yes, it indirectly exists, because the other class where talked about caste discrimination in India and caste in today's world, I specifically talked about economic opportunities based on caste. So if you can relate that here, you'll understand. Historical inequalities, we talk about two major inequalities. One is caste based discrimination. Historically in India, access to resources, access to opportunities completely depended on your birth, your caste. Okay, and the second is gender bias. Now, you cannot ignore women, because when you ignore women, it is impossible for you to reduce inequalities. Women are nearly 48% of your population. 50% of your population cannot be out of work, cannot be underutilized. So, gender bias, to a large extent, women were not given opportunities, women were not given resources, they did not have any property and all. Likewise, caste based discrimination, basically, your caste determined the amount of access you would have to your resources and opportunities. This has led to a deep rooted system of inequality in India. Of course, to a large extent, both these have been corrected, this especially with the government initiatives to provide them quality education, employment opportunities, reservations. LPG reforms also helped, because it increased mobility within all castes, including the lower castes. Okay. Likewise, when it comes to women, women are being given opportunities. There is more awareness. There is more encouragement in terms of education, but the class ceiling remains. This still continues. There is no doubt about it. This still continues, and the roots are historical. So it will take time for us to address historical inequalities. The second reason that we talk about is majority of population in India depends on the agriculture sector, and unfortunately, agrarian distress was there in India for a very long period. India has witnessed massive farmer suicide, huge number of farmer suicides. When more than 50% of your population is dependent on a particular sector, that sector should have been focused, it should have been modernized. But unfortunately, there were no such measures. The schemes and policies that were implemented by the government to a large extent did not have an impact. They could not address the root issues of agrarian distress in India. And agrarian distress was there for decades together. That actually pushed a lot of people into poverty. What Today there is a lot of support from the government. Today there are things are changing, but the impact of so many years of distress still remains. So agrarian distress is the second reason. The third reason is, see, whenever we talk about income, see, it is like what you put in you get out. Okay, you provide everybody quality education, you take care of everybody's health. Imagine you have children, you in your district you have about 10,000 children. All these children, you ensure as a district collector that all of them get quality education, they get quality food, at least till they complete their education, elementary education, and quality healthcare. What will happen eventually as they grow, as they develop? Most of them will get into productive work. Human resources are optimally utilized. That, and automatically they will be able to earn almost at par with each other. This will ensure that the inequalities gradually reduce. But unfortunately, in India, even today, there is unequal access to three most important parameters that can determine your growth. One is education, the other is health. Okay, and this includes nourishment. Even today, to a large extent, there is unequal access. So when your input is not equal, you cannot expect an output which will be equal. Now, another important cause, even today, this remains a very important and very hot cause, that is corruption. Now, why am I listing corruption? Corruption gives an advantage to the rich. They can get anything and everything that they want at at the knock, at the drop of the hat. But for the poor, it is very difficult. So undoubtedly, corruption gives a lot of advantage to people who have access to resources. For them, getting access to everything is very easy, be it resources, be it opportunity. Opening anything is very easy. So corruption, one is it gives advantage to the rich. Corruption is also a reason why most of the schemes have limited success, leakages, loopholes, limited success of welfare programs. The reason is again corruption. There is a very limited, for example, take Manrega. Manrega was when it became an act. There were many, social audit became a part of it, and eventually all this came out. There were many instances where it was claimed that a work has been done by so many people and they were being paid, but actually in reality, the payment never went to the people who on record have worked for it. In fact, there was no work done in some cases. They just said that the work was done and they made the claim. So, limited success of welfare programs is also because of corruption. Corruption leaves a lot of leakages in the system. Corruption is against good governance. When you have good governance, you'll have transparency, accountability, efficiency, effectiveness. Resources are optimally utilized. There won't be any wastage of any resources. Education will be equally accessible. The government will be very responsive. Information will be widespread. We are creating aware citizens. All this will not happen if you have corruption. So, corruption is one of the root causes for both poverty, especially relative poverty and income inequality. Then we talk about jobless growth. See, undoubtedly, on paper, India is growing. It is the fourth largest economy in the world, and We all are very proud of our accomplishment, but the reality, to a large extent, is this growth inclusive? Is it reaching to the lower rung of society? Class, I'm not talking about the caste, talking about the class. Is it reaching the lower rung of society? In terms of real-time conversion, in terms of employment, in terms of income levels, what is the impact? Now, the super rich of India are growing. They are contributing significantly to the national income. Therefore, India's economy is growing. That does not lead to real time growth because the lower rung, the majority of the population is left out of this growth. So, there is a lot of jobless growth in India, which is one of the reasons for rising income inequalities in India. Jobless growth coupled with, see, the service sector development is good. For example, today we all are talking about AI. In India, there is a huge digital divide even today. We have given access to technology. People are able to open the YouTube and watch videos. People are able to open chat GT, sorry, what do you call that, Snapchat and all that. They are able to entertain themselves. But when it comes to real use of technology, how many people in India don't know about it? Will they be able to use tools like AI? Service sector is a highly skilled sector, and as technology advances, the skills expected of humans should also be very, very high. But unfortunately, majority of population in India is left out because of this requirement of high skills, very high skills. Only a few are benefiting. Minimum section benefits, and they are reaping the benefits. Their salaries, their income levels increase. But what about the remaining people? Their income levels remain at the same level. So there is a lot of huge skill gap that exists in India, because of which not many people are able to improvise or move into the higher income level bracket. Now, apart from that, what else can affect? See, we have already talked about corruption, how it gives an advantage to the rich. Then we have limited success of welfare programs. It also results to unequal access to resources because, if you are able to pay a bribe, you get faster access to resources, faster access to opportunities in comparison with people who cannot bribe. So, in terms of governance and policy making, the biggest challenge in addressing income inequality is corruption. Now, moving forward, how does this affect? What will be the consequence of having relative poverty or high levels of income inequality? How does it affect? The first and the foremost impact will be class divide. There will be a class divide, there will be class conflicts. Eventually, when you see only a few are able to afford a lot of things and a lot of what should say, luxuries in life, but majority of them are not able to afford that. Automatically, it leads to a class conflict. Eventually, it results in social tensions. It may lead to law and order issues. This is one aspect of it. Now, you talk about sustainability. You see, growth, unless it is sustainable, makes no sense. And if you really want it to be sustainable, you want it to be inclusive, it is very, very important that the income levels are reduced. So, income inequalities are reduced. So, this consequences is it goes against detrimental to inclusive growth. The idea of inclusive growth. Growth can never be inclusive unless majority of your population is part of your growth. It is not inclusive, and unless it is not inclusive, it is not sustainable because only minority is benefiting out of it. Apart from that, you also have to understand that it also leads to mistrust in democracy. How does it leads to mistrust in democracy? Because of corruption. See, for example, our constitution says there should be progressive taxation. One of the most important measures suggested in the constitution to address economic inequalities is progressive taxation. But is progressive taxation really effective in India? Is it really reducing income inequalities? To what level has it been successful? So, people over a period of time, when there is no change in their way of life, there is no change in their class status, they will lose trust in democracy. Corruption automatically leads to mistrust in democracy. People will alienate themselves. They will not participate in government. Democracy is not just about voting for government. It is about participating in government and governance. It is also, this happens because of underutilization of human resources. Underutilization of human resources is regressive to your economic growth. So this this is also connected to regressed economic growth. What is a regression? Negative economic growth. Eventually, you'll not be able to sustain your economic growth. You'll go on to take back steps. And most importantly, this leads to an intergenerational phenomenon. Intergenerational phenomenon of poverty, of poverty and income inequality. The status of majority of families remains the same for generations. So there won't be any intergenerational mobility. People will not be able to improve their class status. So these are the consequences. Now, what is the way forward? How do we start working on it? The most important point is measurement of poverty, of relative poverty and income inequality should be done on a real time basis. Whenever there is a report on the measurement of relative poverty or income inequality in India, the if at all the report claims about huge reduction in income inequalities, it is severely criticized because experts believe that the data is not correct, and experts believe that the real time information is not properly being analyzed. So it is very, very important to get the real numbers. The second is we have to rework on our progressive taxation system. Unless we rework on our progressive taxation system, it will not be possible for us to understand how to reduce income inequalities, because unless the policies change, address this problem of income inequalities, you cannot make a real time difference. So progressive taxation should be reworked. There should be a lot of focus on basic needs. Basic needs is not just about food, water, and shelter. It is also about education, nourishment, healthcare, information. These things, there should be a lot of focus on giving these. In fact, universalization of these basic needs is a huge step forward to reduce income inequalities, because you have to understand that income inequalities or relative poverty cannot be reduced in a day, in a year, in a couple of years, or in a decade. You need to have sustained, consistent effort towards this, which will over a period of time reduce them. And it should be a multi-pronged strategy. You cannot have a single focus area. You should have a multi-pronged strategy. What should be done in case of children? What should be done in case of youth? What should be done in case of people who are already working, the working age population? So it should be a multi-pronged strategy. Every level of society, every section of society, age group of society should be addressed to really address this problem. So this is about poverty and inequality, income inequality. Thank you for joining me today. Tomorrow, in all likelihood, I'm going to take a topic on ethics. Thank you so much. Good night. Bye bye.